Your soulmate is attempting to reach you right now. Stop everything and open this before it's too. My beloved child. Your soulmate is attempting to reach you right now, but something keeps standing between their heart and yours, and that invisible barrier is growing weaker with every passing moment. Before today ends, a choice will be made that neither of you expected, and the direction of your connection could change forever. You may have noticed small signs that felt impossible to explain. A sudden memory, an unfamiliar feeling of calm, or the strange urge to check your phone even when no notification appeared. Those moments were not meaningless. They were quiet echoes of someone thinking about you far more deeply than you realize. But here is the mystery: why haven't they reached you yet if their heart is calling so loudly? Don't skip, because the answer isn't as simple as distance or timing. Something happened recently that forced them to question everything they believed about this connection, and the truth behind that decision is only beginning to surface. While you have been trying to move forward, your soulmate has been replaying conversations, remembering tiny details that once seemed ordinary but now carry enormous meaning. They keep wondering if they waited too long, if silence has already said more than words ever could. Every hour that passes makes them feel that this opportunity could disappear forever, yet something inside refuses to let them walk away. A quiet realization has changed the way they see you, and it arrived when they least expected it. It wasn't a dramatic event that everyone witnessed. It was a private moment that completely shifted their perspective, leaving them with questions they could no longer ignore. Stay till the end, because the reason behind this emotional change is connected to a promise they made to themselves long ago, a promise they never intended to break until your name entered their thoughts again. Now another unexpected piece of the story is beginning to unfold. Someone close to your soulmate noticed that they have been acting differently, smiling without explanation one moment and becoming unusually quiet the next. When they were finally asked what was really happening, they almost revealed everything, but stopped at the last second. Fear held them back, not because their feelings disappeared, but because the next step feels bigger than anything they have ever faced. They know that one message, one call, or one unexpected conversation could change both of your lives in ways neither of you can predict. Yet they are standing at the edge of that decision right now, wondering whether hope is stronger than hesitation. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next move is no longer about whether they care. It's about the surprising reason they believe this very moment might be their final chance to reach you. A restless feeling settled over them this morning, and they could no longer convince themselves it was just another passing emotion. Every distraction failed. Every attempt to focus on something else only brought your face back into their mind. They even started wondering whether the silence between you had become its own kind of conversation, one filled with things neither of you had ever said aloud. The strange part is that this wasn't triggered by a message, a photograph, or an unexpected encounter. It came from a single realization that arrived without warning. They had been waiting for the perfect moment for far too long, and perfection had quietly become the reason nothing changed. That realization shook them more deeply than they expected. Don't skip, because the next decision they made revealed a side of their heart they had kept hidden from everyone. As the day continued, they found themselves revisiting memories they had tried to bury. They remembered the conversations that ended too soon, the words they wished they had chosen differently, and the opportunities they believed would always return. But this time those memories felt different. Instead of bringing regret alone, they awakened determination. They stopped asking themselves whether reaching out would make them appear vulnerable. Instead, a new question took its place. What if remaining silent became the greatest mistake of their life? That thought refused to leave them. It followed them through every ordinary moment until even the smallest reminder of you carried unexpected weight. Somewhere deep inside, they began preparing themselves for a conversation they never imagined they would have the courage to begin. Yet just when everything seemed ready to move forward, another unexpected obstacle appeared. It wasn't another person, and it wasn't fate working against them. The obstacle was their own fear of what might happen if your response wasn't what they hoped for. For a brief moment, they almost stepped back again, convincing themselves that protecting their heart was safer than risking disappointment. But then something unusual interrupted those doubts, something so personal that it felt impossible to ignore. It wasn't loud or dramatic, yet it carried enough meaning to stop them in their tracks. Suddenly, they realized that waiting one more day might change everything. Stay till the end, because the quiet sign they received is now pushing them toward a choice that could finally break the silence between you, and what happens next is the one thing they never saw coming. An unexpected calm replaced their fear, and that change surprised them more than anything else. It wasn't because every doubt had disappeared. It was because they finally understood that some connections are worth risking uncertainty for. They stopped searching for the perfect words and began searching for the most honest ones instead. Every sentence they imagined saying to you carried the same message beneath it. They didn't want another day to pass wondering what could have been. For the first time in a long while, they allowed themselves to picture a future where silence no longer stood between the two of you. But just as that hope began to grow stronger, they uncovered one small detail they had completely overlooked, and that discovery made them pause all over again. Don't skip, because this hidden piece of the story changes everything. The forgotten detail wasn't about the past. It was about the present. They realized that while they had been building up the courage to reach you, life around you might have changed in ways they didn't yet understand. Questions rushed through their mind. What if you've already closed that chapter? What if you've learned to live without hearing from them? What if the timing they had waited for had already slipped away? Those thoughts hit harder than expected, but instead of pushing them backward, they ignited something stronger. They decided that uncertainty would no longer control them. Even if the answer wasn't the one they hoped for, they would rather know the truth than spend another month imagining endless possibilities. Stay till the end, because the very next step they considered could bring this long silence to an unexpected turning point. Then, without warning, something happened that felt impossible to dismiss. A familiar place, an old melody, and a memory tied to your name came together within the same hour, leaving them with an overwhelming feeling that this moment wasn't ordinary. They couldn't explain it logically, yet every part of them felt as though they were being gently pushed toward one final decision. Their hand moved toward their phone more than once, stopping only inches away before pulling back again. They took a deep breath, looked at your name one more time, and realized there was no longer any place left to hide from what their heart had been trying to say. Just as they gathered the courage to make contact, something completely unexpected appeared on their screen, and that single moment would determine whether the distance between you finally disappeared or became even more mysterious. The screen lit up with something they never expected to see, and for a few long seconds they simply stared without moving. It wasn't the message they had been preparing themselves to send, nor was it a reply from you. It was an unexpected reminder tied to a memory they had nearly forgotten, a date, a phrase, and a moment that instantly brought every buried emotion rushing back. Their heartbeat quickened as they realized how strangely everything seemed to be aligning. They whispered to themselves, "Maybe this isn't a coincidence after all." That quiet thought changed the way they looked at the decision ahead. Instead of searching for another excuse to wait, they began wondering whether every delay had been leading to this exact moment. Something huge is waiting for you, because what they chose to do next was completely different from anything they had planned only hours before. Rather than sending a rushed message filled with emotion, they decided to slow down and think carefully about every word. They wanted you to understand not only how much you had remained in their heart, but also why they had stayed silent for so long. They knew that honesty carried more power than perfect wording. Yet while they were rewriting that message again and again, another realization quietly surfaced. They remembered a promise you once made, a simple statement that seemed ordinary at the time but now echoed with surprising meaning. Suddenly, they feared that they had misunderstood your silence all along. What if you hadn't been pushing them away? What if you had simply been waiting for them to take the first step? That possibility filled them with both hope and urgency. Stay till the end, because they were closer than ever to reaching out, but one final uncertainty still stood in their way. Just as they prepared to press send, another unexpected interruption forced them to stop. A conversation with someone they trusted revealed a perspective they had never considered before. Instead of encouraging them to give up, those words challenged them to ask themselves one question: if this connection truly matters, what are you still afraid of? They couldn't answer immediately. They looked at the unfinished message, then back at your name, realizing that fear had been disguising itself as caution all this time. In that silent moment, they made a decision that would shape everything that followed. They placed their finger above the send button, took one slow breath, and finally accepted that there would be no turning back after this. But before that message could leave their phone, something completely unforeseen happened. And the next few moments would reveal whether destiny had one last surprise waiting for both of you. Just before the message was sent, the phone vibrated in their hand, breaking the silence that had surrounded them for what felt like an eternity. Their heart raced as they looked down, expecting another distraction, another reason to postpone what they had finally gathered the courage to do. But what appeared on the screen wasn't an interruption at all. It was a small reminder connected to a conversation the two of you once shared, a conversation they had nearly forgotten until this exact moment. Suddenly, every unfinished sentence, every missed opportunity, and every quiet feeling seemed to fit together like pieces of a puzzle that had been scattered for far too long. They realized this wasn't about finding the perfect time anymore. It was about refusing to lose one more moment to hesitation. Don't skip, because what happened in the next few minutes completely changed the way they viewed your connection. For the first time, they stopped imagining how everything could go wrong and started imagining what might happen if they finally chose courage over fear. They pictured your reaction, not with certainty, but with hope. They wondered whether you had also been carrying unanswered questions, whether you had ever paused during an ordinary day and thought about them without warning. That possibility refused to leave their mind. Every memory that once caused regret now became a reason to move forward. They smiled quietly, realizing that even if the future remained uncertain, honesty would always be stronger than silence. Stay till the end, because the message they were about to send carried one sentence they had never dared to admit before, and those words had the power to change everything between you. Then came the moment that could no longer be delayed. Their thumbs slowly moved toward the screen as they whispered, "No more waiting." The message was complete, their heart was ready, and every excuse had finally disappeared. Yet just as they prepared to send it, another notification appeared at the top of the screen. This one wasn't from a stranger or an app. It was connected to you in a way they never expected, revealing a detail they hadn't known until that very second. Their eyes widened, and they froze once again. Not because they wanted to turn back, but because this new discovery suggested that your path and theirs might already be moving toward the same destination. Something huge is waiting for you, because the truth hidden inside that unexpected notification is about to reveal why this connection has never been as distant as it seemed. A single glance at that notification left them completely speechless. It wasn't dramatic on the surface, but the timing was impossible to ignore. It hinted that your lives had been moving along parallel paths far more often than either of you realized. Places you had both visited, moments that almost crossed, decisions that nearly brought you together, all of it suddenly formed a pattern they had never noticed before. The more they thought about it, the harder it became to believe these were random coincidences. They began to wonder if every delay had quietly been preparing both of you for a meeting that would happen only when neither heart was running from the truth anymore. That realization didn't erase their fear, but it replaced it with something much stronger, quiet confidence. Don't skip, because the next choice they made wasn't based on hope alone, it was based on something they could finally feel with complete certainty. Instead of rushing to send the message, they closed their eyes for a brief moment and imagined what they truly wanted you to know. Not polished words. Not a perfect confession. Just honesty. They wanted you to understand that every period of silence had carried thoughts they never found the courage to express. They wanted you to know that distance had never erased your importance, and that every attempt to forget had only reminded them how deeply your presence had shaped their heart. As they opened their eyes again, they noticed something remarkable. The fear that had followed them for so long no longer felt as powerful. In its place was a quiet determination that whispered, even if the outcome is uncertain, the truth deserves to be heard. Stay till the end, because what happened immediately afterward convinced them that waiting any longer would only allow another precious opportunity to disappear. Then everything became strangely still. The room was silent. Their phone rested in their hand. There were no distractions left, no excuses hiding behind uncertainty. They looked at your name one final time, took a slow breath, and pressed the button they had avoided for so long. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the screen changed, confirming that the message had finally begun its journey toward you. Relief washed over them, but it lasted only a moment. Almost instantly, another unexpected sign appeared, one that suggested your story was already moving in a direction neither of you had anticipated. Their heartbeat quickened again as they realized this wasn't the end of the journey. It was the beginning of an even greater revelation, because what happened after that message reached you would uncover a truth neither of you had ever dared to imagine. A quiet shift began the very moment the message was sent. though neither of you could see it happening yet. While your soulmate waited for any sign that it had reached you, their thoughts raced faster than ever before. Every second felt unusually long. They wondered if you would open it immediately, if you would pause before reading it, or if life had carried you so far forward that the message would arrive too late. Yet beneath all those questions was a strange sense of peace they had never experienced before. For the first time, they no longer regretted telling the truth. Whatever happened next would be real, and that alone made them feel lighter than they had in months. But just when they believed the hardest part was over, something unexpected began unfolding on your side of the story. Without realizing why, you felt an unusual pull toward something you had almost ignored. It might have been a sudden thought, an old memory returning at the perfect moment, or an unexpected feeling that refused to disappear. Nothing around you seemed different, yet inside, something had quietly changed. The connection you thought had faded suddenly felt closer than ever. Questions started surfacing that hadn't crossed your mind in a long time. Why were these memories returning now? Why did today feel different from every other day? At that exact moment, your soulmate was wondering the very same thing, completely unaware that both of you were standing on opposite sides of the same turning point. Stay till the end, because neither of you knew that another person was about to unknowingly influence what happened next. Then an ordinary conversation took an extraordinary direction. Someone close to your soulmate casually mentioned your name without knowing how deeply it would affect them. The room fell silent. Their hearts skipped a beat as they listened carefully, hoping to hear anything that might reveal how you were doing. What they heard wasn't shocking or dramatic. It was something far more powerful. It suggested that your path had not moved away from theirs as much as they had feared. That single piece of information reignited every hope they had tried to bury. They looked back at the message they had finally sent and whispered to themselves, "Maybe this is only the beginning." But before they could fully understand what it meant, another unexpected development started unfolding. One that would reveal whether your response had already begun changing the future of this extraordinary connection. Morning arrived with a feeling neither of you could explain. Your soulmate woke up expecting to feel relieved after finally sending the message, but instead they felt something even stronger, a quiet certainty that the story between you was far from over. They reached for their phone more than once, resisting the temptation to check it every few minutes. They knew that some moments couldn't be rushed. Still, every passing minute seemed to whisper the same question: have they seen it yet? That uncertainty wasn't painful anymore. It was filled with hope. Deep inside, they believed the silence was changing into something meaningful. Don't skip, because the next discovery made them realize that your connection had been moving toward this moment much longer than either of you understood. At the same time, your own day began unfolding in unusual ways. Familiar places suddenly reminded you of forgotten conversations. Ordinary sounds carried unexpected emotions. You caught yourself thinking about someone you hadn't planned to think about, and the feeling refused to disappear no matter how hard you tried to focus on something else. It wasn't overwhelming, it was gentle, almost as if a forgotten chapter was quietly asking to be read again. Meanwhile, your soulmate noticed something equally unexpected. They found themselves smiling without realizing it, not because they had already received an answer, but because the fear that once controlled them had completely vanished. They understood that true connections aren't measured by how quickly someone responds but by whether honesty finally finds its way into the open. Stay till the end, because another surprising clue was about to make them believe your paths.